Nebraska had their spring game yesterday. Year 2 of the Matt Rhule era is off and running. And tell you what, man, quarterbacks look good. One specific quarterback I thought that is new to a Cornhusker jersey looked really good. So what does it mean for Nebraska? What can we take away from the spring game? We'll talk about it right now. But first things first, make sure you're subscribed right here, y'all. Listen, if you're watching a recap, a reaction to a spring game, you're a little bit sick for this college football thing, and we're the exact same way because we're talking about it less than 24 hours after it happened. So make sure you're subscribed right here, locked in. Also, make sure you're following me on Instagram and on Twitter at JDPakel. Want to interact and hear from y'all on that platform as well. So as I alluded to at the top of this thing, the quarterback room, I thought all three of those cats, you saw an improvement of just the eye test than what you saw last season. That's not to dunk on Jeff Sims. It's not to dunk on Heinrich Haarberg. I think Heinrich Haarberg, just from what I could tell yesterday, looked night and day like a more under control quarterback, if that makes sense. He was battling for that job. Daniel Kalen looked, I think, really impressive for a true freshman who's been there all of 15 practices and still getting his feet underneath him in the college game. But let's just be honest about this thing. I understand we got three guys in this room. I understand we're going to talk about how they're competing for the job. Dylan Raiola is the guy. Okay, Dylan Raiola is going to be your starting quarterback game 1 in 2024 at Nebraska. Again, that's not speaking ill of anybody else. But what you saw from him running the offense yesterday, it's just a different speed. It's just a different level of what he can do pushing the ball downfield. I also think, just so we're on the same page here, even as a true freshman, I feel like he's going to hit a higher percentage of layups than we saw last year from Nebraska's offense. Bottom line, they're going to be much better throwing the football downfield. And when you watch Dylan Raiola, there's a couple of things that stand out. One, he's just so under control. Like a lot of times you see true freshmen get out there, especially in the spring game, they look frantic. The game's too fast for them. They're trying to ad-lib too much. Dylan Raiola was ad-libbing, but he was going the right place with the football. He played under himself. He played with a good pace about himself. And it was a mix of understanding to let the game come to him, but at the same time being really aggressive. That deep shot to Jalen Lloyd, it was a horrible day yesterday to be a tempered expectation. Because I promise, a lot of us that were watching Nebraska yesterday wanted to say, okay, we're going to take what we can from this game, not overreact. It's a spring game, and that's still true. But when he dropped that dime in a bucket downfield for a touchdown, you're a Nebraska fan, you're like, okay, we got that playing quarterback now. Okay, we add that element to the offense potentially in 2024. How good can we be? Drink the Kool-Aid. And I'm all for drinking Kool-Aid in the spring, just so we're on the same page there. But he's going to be your guy. He's going to be your guy, and I feel like what we saw yesterday should be a pretty good sample size moving forward if you're a Nebraska Cornhusker fan. Now, with that being said, Dylan Raiola is your guy. I think what Matt Rhule said after the spring game yesterday is absolutely on the money. It is going to take that entire room to get to where they want to go. So Dylan Raiola, he's your guy, but I think Heinrich Haarberg has to be involved in some way, shape, or form, whether it's giving him specific packages. Maybe you're finding a role for him to play in that H-back position. I think he's that good of an athlete he could do that. We'll see what happens there, but the bottom line here is you still need Heinrich Haarberg. Dylan Raiola should be your guy. On top of what they brought to the quarterback position yesterday, I thought the playmakers out wide looked pretty good, man. I mentioned Jalen Lloyd. If he's able to continue to trend the way that he has during spring ball in that spring game, having that vertical element, that's a game changer. Isaiah Neyor, I know he didn't have a massive statistical day yesterday, but you saw it in flashes. You saw things that you had heard about during spring camp, and seeing him make some plays, it's a big target for you. That's a game changer. The tight end room is extremely solid. That pass game for Nebraska is only going to make the run game better. Because I think Nebraska and Matt Rhule, the identity for them, it's still the same. They still want to be the ground and pound, make you say uncle, impose their physical will on you. Why? Because they're Nebraska, right? Because that logo still means something. That brand of football they play, that still means something. They ran for 176 yards a game last year. They bring back, I believe, 78% of that production from last season offensively. They're still going to pound the rock. But the difference now with Dylan Raiola, if you're able to duplicate what you did in that spring game or a version of that into the fall, then defenses can't stack the box. Then defenses have to give you some kind of honest look on the back end and not add in the safety all the time, which means that the run game will allow themselves to have a little bit more advantageous pictures when it comes to running the football. Now, defensively, there's going to be some folks that just see the Twitter snippet of Raiola dropping the deep pass to Lloyd, and they'll say, oh, boy, Nebraska's defense is in for it, right? Nebraska's defense is going to get shredded week 2 against Colorado, and Shedeur is going to go for 500 yards. And, I'm not telling you Shedeur Sanders isn't a really good quarterback, because I absolutely believe he is, and I believe they will absolutely have their work cut out for them. But we know who this defense is at Nebraska. We know who they are. They bring back 78% of that production from last season that allowed 18 points a game. They've got, for my money, one of the best defensive coordinators in college football, and Tony White, who's going to be a head coach this time next year. I'm not worried about the defense. If there was a side of the ball that you wanted to see win yesterday as a Cornhusker fan, it was exactly who won the day in my mind, and that was the offense, and that was the quarterbacks and the skill players showing some extra gears, if you will, to what they're going to be offensively. So we walk out of the spring game, and we understand now we got a long way to go till fall camp. We got to get through this portal cycle, all those things. But what I expect from Nebraska coming out of that spring game is the exact same thing I expected of them coming into that spring game, which is they are going to look like an advanced version of a year 2 Matt Rhule football team. Year 1, so usually let's get our feet underneath us. Let's kind of get comfortable with his way of doing things. Hey, success and having successful standards, it's not for everybody. A better way to say that, what it takes to be successful under Matt Rhule is not for everybody. There's a really high bar set. They're going to demand the best from you every single day. On the field, off the field, you better bring it. And that's something that a lot of guys are uncomfortable with, and they're going to hit the portal, and they're going to leave. And you're not seeing a lot of that from Nebraska, which tells me there's tremendous buy-in there. There's guys that see where this is headed, that are trusting Matt Rhule, that are trusting the process, and they're going to, in my opinion, reap the rewards of that. So going back to what I said a second ago before I kind of went on that tangent there, year 1, it's very much so a growing pains year, historically for Matt Rhule. You see Temple, you see Baylor, they won a couple of games. Year 2 is when you see a pretty sizable jump. Both those teams won, I believe, 7 or 8 games. Baylor definitely won that bowl game their second year under Matt Rhule. Year 3, they made the jump. I think this upcoming season for Nebraska, I've said it before, their roster is so much better than those situations at Temple and Baylor to where I expect them to definitely make a bowl game. I'll say that, definitely make a bowl game, and they're going to be a pain for everyone to have to play them anywhere past September because they're going to be a physical team. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to be now, I think, even more potent offensively. I'll say this again. Dylan Raiola is a ceiling changer for this team. The defense is solid. The culture, I think, will be even more solidified than it was last season. And the run game's going to be vicious. So I can't wait to watch it. Spring game, you're just taking a diagnosis. You're not trying to make any definitive statements. I'll say that again. You're trying to take a temperature. You're not trying to define what this team's going to be. And Nebraska, I think, put a lot of things on tape yesterday to encourage you if you are a Cornhusker fan, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So make sure you're subscribed. Get at me on Twitter, Instagram, at Jody Pickell. Let me know how you feel about yesterday's spring game for Nebraska. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.